Are you in search of your perfect cup of coffee at home? Do you crave a fresh cup of joe from the comfort of your own kitchen? Well, look no further, because Black Sun Coffee is here to help. The medium roast from Black Sun Coffee features notes of Brazil nut, grapefruit, and oak. The freshness is guaranteed to start your day off right. Go to blacksuncoffee.com, that's BLVCK, and use the promo code Confidence20 for 20% off your next purchase.
The Confidence Factor. The Confidence Factor.
People know how to put other people in boxes, don't they? That's part of how our brains make sense of the world. We see a person, we learn a little bit about them, and then right or wrong, our brain puts them in a box. Sometimes you're put in a box based on what people assume they know about you, based on what they heard, who your family is, where you're from, etc. And then sometimes we put ourselves in boxes, trying to be who others expect us to be. How often do we feel trapped by the expectations from others, but also the expectations we put upon ourselves? Today's guest teaches us how she gained the confidence to break out of those boxes, to be the woman she was always meant to be, and to live the life that she always dreamed of. Let's listen.
The Confidence Factor.
All right, so I've known today's guest for quite some time. Like me, she's just a kid from Akron, Ohio, but now she lives in Atlanta. She is a mother, a TV host, Instagram's 2 Cent Tuesday specialist, and a relationship coach specifically focusing on helping single and divorced women of faith go from survivor to thriver. So please welcome Miss Shayla Raye to the Confidence Factor. So thank you for being here.
My God, I love that.
You know
the perfect introduction. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, thank you. I try.
Listen, you did that.
All right. So we've known each other for quite some time. So I always like to think what's our initial connection?
Yeah, our initial connection is growing up in the church together. Church and yeepaw, which is something that we do every summer. It's something that we grew through. And, I just think about how important my childhood, being in church and being involved in all of these things when it comes to the church had an impact on me in my life and who I am today. So it's like we grew together, girl. We really, literally from childhood to college to sorority.
Yes.
Although we're in different sororities, but that sorority life, and just being active and having a community of people at the church, I just feel like it made me who I am.
Absolutely. Well, you definitely have a journey. And you definitely have a story, and I am excited to talk to you. When I first thought about doing this podcast, and then I'm starting to write down the list, your name popped up in my head. And of course, different people for different reasons, but I'm like, when I look at my list, I'm like, I feel like your story is unique. And so, I'm excited to kind of delve into that today. So just to, get us started, how do you define confidence?
Confidence to me is knowing who you are, like really having a clear understanding of who God has created you to be. And sometimes that takes a while to figure out. And I think even particularly when it came to me, and this is why I think we struggle through our teen years and, because we're confused. We don't really understand who we are. We don't know, the facets of ourselves. All we know is society standards. And sometimes that can play into our self-esteem because we're trying to compare how we naturally feel and who we naturally are to what we're seeing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that we didn't have to grow up with social media because that would be that would be a whole nother layer of challenge. But particularly with me, my dad being a politician growing up, I compare it to being like, I say it's the other PK, not a preacher's kid, but it's,
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it has a lot of similarities. A lot of people know who you are. You're in a spotlight. People are looking at you, even if it's on a small scale, something as small as Akron, Ohio. I struggled with knowing who I was because I knew who I needed to be, and I felt like I needed to be almost perfect because whatever I did could potentially affect my parents' profession. And it was a lot of pressure. So I always understand, like, for me, moving out of the city of Akron and going to places where people really didn't know me gave me a clearer understanding of who I am and what I want. And I think that's where I started to gain my confidence. So to answer the question, I know that was a long roundabout way of saying it, but, I think it's knowing who you are. I think it's healing from some of the pain and the traumas of life. When you get to that point of healing and accepting your journey and accepting your story and realizing that it's beautiful, flaws and all, that builds a confidence in you. And so that's really what it means to me. It's just an unspoken feeling of peace and happiness in my eyes.
Okay. I like how you talked about when you move away from home and that experience of kind of moving away from what's familiar to you. Now, I know, like, for me, I went to Bowling Green, and I also went to Bowling Green I roomed with one of my best friends from high school. Then the next year, my best friend from church comes. So I'm like surrounded by people I know. But you went to Bennett, right? Okay. So, so I feel like you were, and I don't know if you knew anybody when you got down there, or if you had a community kind of like already built into it. I didn't have that, like, I don't know anybody experience. So I was 28 when I moved to New York. So I felt like you had a little bit of a younger start on that, like putting the pieces of who I really am together. But what was your journey in terms of getting to that place where you, like, are sure in who you are?
Yeah. So I would say some of it started in college, but I was still young and confused. I still had all the societal pressure, surprisingly, even though I moved to another place. I mean, 18 years of my life and all of that I knew was that life, so it was almost an adjustment to realize, wow, this is a different experience, but I'm still trapped in that same position. And so was confused, like a lot of people are when they go to college. They don't know what they really want to do. They major in the wrong things. You're just feeling your way through life. But I did learn so much during those years about myself, and I didn't know a lot of people. My mom's best friend's daughter went to Bennett, and that's how I knew about Bennett. My dad and mom, they felt like I was kind of, little boy crazy. So they were like, listen, all girls school for Shayla. And I was called all girls school, even in Akron. So it was one of those things that, I felt like it was a great learning experience. And for me, Bennett was so pivotal for me because not only was it at HBCU, and, my parents, they wanted to go to HBCU. So they were big on each and every one of us going to HBCUs. We all went to different ones. But it was an all women's institution. So in every single organization, the leaders are Black women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that imagery, you know, it really set a really strong foundation in my mind about you can do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You really can. You can be whatever it is that you want to be. What is it that you want to do? And I started to lay that foundation, and I started to ask myself those questions. And a lot of what I wanted to do wasn't traditional to my family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, my family, they're, you know, in politics and business, and I'm more of a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come into confidence in accepting that maybe what I want from my life is not your traditional, it's not what's for somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
and accepting that.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up moving back to Akron for a little bit after college. And then that's when I decided I got laid off at my job at First Energy. And I was just like, Lord, this is my time. This is the perfect time for me to, you know, go for my dreams and actually do something that I wanted to do. And I always wanted to live in New York,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and, you know, we have friends there that were living there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, and it just felt like it was home. And I was like, you know what, God, if this is what you want me to do, make it happen. I'm not even going to like pursue this as a goal. Like, just make it happen. And I ran into one of my friends from college, and at the time she was living with her sister. She hit the housing lottery, so she was moving out of their apartment. And she was like, my sister needs a roommate. It's only going to be $500 a month if you want to move in, because she had a rent controlled apartment. That's like unheard of in New York. Like, that doesn't happen. And I was like, God, you move really fast. It was like literally a couple weeks later. And I said, tell her I'll be there. Mm-hmm. And New York was just, you know, coming from Akron. And this is why it's so important that we do either travel to other places and see how other people live, because it creates an experience. Mm-hmm. And you're never the same after it. And growing up in Akron, we didn't have a ton of diversity. I don't really recall us having like Hispanic people or, you know, just so many different things where I would see people who look like me, but they're speaking Spanish in New York. Or I learned about all these different types of food and culture, because it's literally like the whole world in one city. Mm-hmm. And for me, spending 4 years there was like my education in life, you know, like, because I learned so much about the world, which in turn gave me the gift of learning more about me and what I want and what I enjoy. I then got pregnant with my daughter. And again, I popped back into that little girl. I really believe that we do pop back to that person that's in us, because it's still in us no matter what. It's something that we have to continuously grow through. And I think that's where our confidence is built from. But I just felt the need to be married. I felt the need that I needed to, you know, I grew up in the church. That's another thing. I mean, I was just like, man, I don't want to look like this to my peers. I don't want to. It was so many different things that really pushed me into prematurely being married, and the political side too, you know, and gave everything that I had to my marriage, and it still didn't end up working out. And I think that was probably one of the moments that my self-esteem took the hardest hit, where I had lost the most confidence in, especially after a failure or a mistake, or, you know, I think, you know, our confidence is not continuous. It does, even if you get to it, it's like the weight. It's like the weight on the scale. You can lose it, but you can also gain it back. You know what I mean? And it's something that when life hits you, your confidence, your esteem, things can take a hit. And I think at that point in time, I was a new mom. I was trying to figure out that role, you know, a new role that I did not know what to do, you know, and I was dealing with just everything that was going on in my life, in my marriage, and trying to figure out what to do next, really. And it wasn't until I was able to really step away from my marriage, because think about it, if you're having issues in your marriage and you're doing, all your energy is going towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of my energy was going towards being a mother. So I literally had no space in my life to think about me and who am I and where am I right now, because my energy is just going to all these other things. So when I was able to walk away from my marriage, it gave me the chance to build up my confidence again. And I got a chance to ask myself those questions, like the hard questions. How did we get here?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? Not, where did you go wrong? Because we can, fall into that victim of it's everybody else and it's not us. And the second that I took accountability for my actions and I started to understand what I did, where I went wrong, and why, I was slowly but surely able to invest in myself and invest in my confidence, my peace, and my happiness, and accept my story for who it is, for what it is, and not be ashamed about anything about it. So it literally no longer had control of me, and that gave me peace, happiness, and the confidence to move forward in the path that God wants me on.
Thank you for sharing that. That is quite the journey. So given that journey, how would you describe yourself before you, and again, I love how you talked about like, you just don't stay, like you just don't find confidence and now I'm here and I'm here forever. Life happens and things will come and knock us back off, knock us down and make us unsure of ourselves and question ourselves. And so sometimes you have to claw back to get to that place again. But how would you describe yourself before you've had kind of these realizations? And then how would you describe yourself now in terms of your confidence?
I think before I wasn't intentional about it. It was just kind of really just going through the motions, because it's not something that we really even are taught or even think about. If anything, there's so many societal pressures. And one thing about me is I used to just be really hard on myself. And I want to touch on that perfection piece, because that's where it gets tricky. Like, you're trying to be perfect. You're trying to show the world that you're this or that. And it's not your reality, because you're working so hard to put on pretty much a facade, because none of us are perfect, like it is what it is. Like, our flaws can be beautiful. But before, I was more focused on perfection. And I feel like now I'm more accepting of the reality of it. And I'm unapologetically myself. And it feels so freeing. It just feels like, you're not a caged bird. You're not, you're just not. It felt like I was in jail and sometimes because I was just held back. I was not able to be free. And now, having a daughter, it was very important for me to live in reality, like to truly be who I am, so that she can see what confidence really looks like. Not what it looks like because it's fake, because you're trying to be something else, but because it truly is what it is. And a lot of the things that I've done has been, and a lot of my growth and my confidence has been for my daughter, because I want her to see those good, positive images, so that she understands that she has to build her own confidence throughout her life. Even now, she's only 8, but, just starting to get her to accept things as they are. Accept your hair, accept how you look, accept, certain things, but always be striving to be the best version of yourself, of course. But also just understand that, hey, it's okay. Like, it's okay to be who you are.
Absolutely. So then what would you say is your confidence factor?
Ooh. I think my confidence factor is my superpower. My superpower, because I think when you have that and you can wear that cape, people around you notice. Like they notice, they see it, they feel it. When you enter a room, I mean, there's the little subtle details of things that you can tell when someone has, is lacking confidence. And when someone has it, when you come into a room and your shoulders are back and your head's up high and you feel very confident in who you are, and you feeling what you're wearing. It's just my superpower. And I think I've started to see myself excel in so many ways when I realize you got this. You are where you're supposed to be, and you can do this. And even with building a business, I will say, because I've been building my coaching practice with divorced women, I did want to help women, and even co-parents with co-parenting, because, I've really mastered the co-parenting thing, and it is a challenge for so many people, I realize. But building my business and getting my mind to understand you can do this is sometimes that's a hard confidence to put in yourself, like just even believing that you can do some of your goals. Like you have to tell yourself, like, no, I got this. This is what God destined me to do. And I think the enemy, he wants you to doubt yourself so that you can shy away from doing what God has called you to do. So wear your superpower, wear your cape, and know you got this.
Absolutely. So when has there been a time that, your superpower was in full, like, activated mode, and it's just like everything was firing on all cylinders? Can you think of like an example?
Oh, yes. I would say my superpower was in full mode. I would say last year, I would say my superpower was on full mode because I made a major decision, and that was purchasing a home. And
that's right.
And so many things. There was so much doubt in my mind. And is this what you really want? And is it? And I think just like I explained that story from New York, I always know when God is involved, because it really does become easy. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a challenge to kind of get it done, but for some way, somehow, he just starts to just work it out, and you just start seeing, like, these things that are, falling into place. And then some things will fall out of place, like the experience in 2020 that we had last year, where life changed completely. I mean, I am the extrovert of the world. I love to be out. I'm like a socialite. I love to be meeting new people, and all of that was taken away from me. But at the same time, I had a home. I was where I wanted to be isolated or have to be quarantined somewhere. I was like, God, you did it right on time. And I think last year was like a big lesson in not letting what you've always done define you, because those things were taken away. The travel, the events, all of that was gone.
Fellow extrovert here, I understand. Like, many
gone.
ways.
But sometimes our identity can lie in what we are accustomed to, or what we do on a normal basis, or what we love to do. So me being home and being converted into an introvert homebody really gave me a new sense of confidence, I feel, because I realized that I could find the beauty in a completely different environment. And that's one of the blessings that I truly believe came out of 2020. There was that terrible things that happened. So many people lost their lives. But there were some things that were really positive. So I would say last year was a big year for my confidence.
So for my final question, pick a number between 1 and 37.
Oh, okay. 22.
So then, knowing what you know now and everything that you've experienced and all the knowledge that you've gained, what would you tell 22-year-old Shayla?
Oh, I like this question. I would tell 22-year-old Shayla that life is a roller coaster. You have ebbs and flows, you have mountains and valleys, and enjoy the ride, and even enjoy the valley, and learn from everything that it is that you go through. Understand that there's a meaning behind it. There's a learning lesson, and no matter how bad it gets, it will get good again. Just keep on believing in God. Keep doing what's right. Don't underestimate doing what's right, because even though sometimes it feels good to be petty in the moment, or it feels good to, do what's going to be gratifying in that moment, it's way better to take the high road, and it's way better to do what's right, because it comes back around.
All right. Do you think 22-year-old Shayla would have believed you?
No. 22-year-old Shayla thought she knew life. Why do we
Don't
do
we
that?
all?
Right. We thought we had it figured out. You know what? I feel like the 30s have been the most clear. Like, I've learned so much. I tell people 20s, I learned a lot of things, but not like the 30s.
There's a different clarity. And I think my 30s brought some acceptance. It's just like, I really don't know the journey, but I'm along for the ride. And I'm good with that.
And that builds confidence. I feel more confident now than I felt in any other stage of my life because of that. Like, it's just the acceptance, the understanding. I tell people, call out your shame. Whatever it is that makes you feel shame, call it out, because that thing has control over you until it's no longer shame for you. So it's been a beautiful journey. And we still got a lot to go, girl.
I know. And I'm looking forward to it. I used to be afraid of the next number, but I'm like, if this is what my 30s were, come on, 40. Like, come on. So
40 is gonna be it.
I am looking forward to it. And I think I'll just be happy to be there.
I know, right?
So,
it's been a blessing. It's a blessing. We know people who didn't make it, or whatever. Like, life really took a hold of some people. So it's definitely a blessing to be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. This was awesome. This was truly awesome. So I just thank you. A lot of wisdom in what you shared, and demonstrated growth in what you shared. So I just appreciate your transparency and your willingness to share the journey. So
thank you for inviting me, because it was a no-brainer. One, because it was you, and two, just this topic. I just think it's so important that we highlight confidence. And thank you for this work that you're doing. Dr. Shaw.
I forget who I said this to, but I'm like, I can always tell when God is in it. And like, this is definitely that. You know,
Yes.
you know, they tell you when you pick your dissertation projects, you got to find a gap in the literature. And I'm like, okay. And then I
Right.
did.
Mm.
And it was just like, this is it.
This
And
is
then the
it.
way everything has just come together over the last, I'll say definitely last 2 years, but I'll even extend that, maybe the last like 7 years. Just when I sit here now and think about all these different pieces of the puzzle that had to come together for this moment, I'm just like, this is just like, there's no other explanation.
None.
No other explanation.
And it's going to be a journey through this.
Yep.
I mean, and it's going to be a beautiful one. So I'm just excited for you.
Thank you.
And I'm just proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And likewise.
Aw.
Likewise. But before I let you go, where can we find you on social media? And then, you know, you mentioned about your coaching practice. And so, you know, let people know what you're working on.
Yes. Okay. So for social media, you can find me at I am Shayla Raye, and Raye is spelled Raye. Shayla is Shayla. You can find me at Shayla Raye on Facebook, pretty much all of the social media networks. I also have an Instagram page called Divorced Not Defined. And that's where I'm starting to build up a lot of my work. And I have a new website that I'm launching. It will be www.shaylaraye.com. And that's where you'll be able to see, you know, all of the information that I have around women, because it's really about saving the Black family, and really bringing us back together. And once we go through some trauma in our relationships, healing, and creating that confidence and moving into the next stage of life, ready and prepared. So yes, please follow me. Please connect. Would love to hear from you guys.
All right. And again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, my love. I appreciate you.
All right.
See you soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to The Confidence Factor. Be sure to check out my website at www.beshawesome or beshawesome.com. You can also check me out on Instagram at b.shawesome. As always, thank you to Golden Ox Studios for making this a reality week after week.